sometimes being a car YouTuber in the United Kingdom really does everything it can to test your patience. You know that Elise Cup 250 video I did with the nice black and gold JPS number, where it was lovely and sunny and bright, we had the roof down and wind in our hair and nice and warm? We shot that an hour ago. Now there's some big black storm clouds rolling in. Thank God I'm not in a car with a reputation for being really snappy in the wet, hey? Well, there's one thing I won't need. Sorry about the odd introduction. Let's go. So, today I am driving a 2014 BMW M135i. I'm not very much a fan of hot hatches. For various reasons, they've just never really done anything for me. But they are incredibly popular cars for many reasons, and so I do on occasion feature them. And I have to confess, I've really been selling one car in particular short. This one. Because I've traditionally always been a big fan of BMWs, certainly when you compare them with their obvious German rivals. However, I haven't really featured the 1 Series at all on this channel. I've featured the A45, the CLA45, the Civic Type R, which I loved, and I've mentioned this car on occasion. I did the Golf R as well, but I've not actually driven this one on the channel. Now, my stepmother used to own a previous generation M135i. Now, the 135i has had a few different options available over the years. Hers was a convertible, and it's one of the last of that generation. So now the 2 Series has taken over from the 1 Series coupe and convertible. Her car was unusual because there was a very, very short window where you could actually have a 1 Series with the DCT box. And that car was great fun. Now for the 2nd generation of car, they then changed and they went for a regular auto box. Not a bad auto box at all, but not quite the same as a DCT. Now the engines have seen a couple of different changes in these cars as well. This one is a twin power unit, but it's the 2nd generation, so it's not twin turbo, but it has a single twin scroll turbo in it. Now the red line is 7,000 RPM, and the car's peak power is 315 horsepower. They had a slightly later version which made around 320. Torque is around 330 pound-foot. Fairly good numbers. Not blisteringly amazing if you compare them to something like, say, the A45 or an RS3, but these have been around for a lot longer. And certainly as a used car, they are a real bargain. Now this car actually landed at Stratton a little while ago. It's part X'd against a Lotus, of course. And I asked Alex when it came in whether I could have a go. Now today, I was actually meant to be driving to Elise. I suppose fortunately, one of those cars had actually sold, so I had some time and wasn't sure what to film. When I saw that this car was actually still available, I asked Alex whether I could review it, and he was happy for me to do so. Now, I'm going to have to be very careful with it in these conditions, but I'm going to do my best to try and review the car. Jumping in one of these straight out of an Elise is entertaining, to say the least. Most people would probably think of an M135i as quite a small, taut, fairly hard, sharp car. After an Elise Cup, this is a nice, big, soft, wafty, wallowy thing. Now, the engine in this, 3 litre, straight 6, a classic BMW power plant. If you're going to buy a BMW, make sure the cylinder count is at least 6. And their best engines are always 6-cylinder. This one's code, if you're so inclined to know these sorts of things, is N55. Now, interestingly, this car is actually not optioned with the auto box that most of them are. It's got a manual. I've got a real love-hate relationship with BMW's gearboxes. I've owned a couple of manuals and one auto. I despised the manual box in both my Z4M and my M3. They are actually different boxes, although they use the same engine, and they are rubbish for different reasons. However, this one, beautiful. It's smooth, it's slick, it does exactly what a gearbox should. The engine sounds gorgeous. A lot of manufacturers in the last decade have begun to turbocharge their mainstream cars. BMW are one of those who probably people didn't really expect them to do it because they were so wedded to naturally aspirated and particularly high revving naturally aspirated motors in their M cars. But the units BMW are using, particularly this one that you'll find in 3.5 badged cars, is just a joy. It's not very highly strung, 320 horsepower out of something that, it's torquey and it's slippery out there. 320 horsepower out of a 3-litre turbocharged engine is not asking the world. Now, while that won't go any way to impressing your mates down the pub, what it does do is deliver an incredibly drivable, usable car. That bong was telling me that I'm low on fuel, which I am a little bit. Fuel economy in these cars is actually not too bad. I'll tell you to refer to the manufacturer guidelines, but I find BMWs tend to be a little more honest than most. Certainly with these larger engines, you'll find that the numbers you get are a little bit more honest than those smaller, very highly turbocharged cars. I had some sort of hope that this might actually have cleared and the little bit of rain we had at the start of the video would be the extent of it. No, unfortunately not. I really should take the opportunity to thank Alex, because most other dealers, if they knew that a YouTuber was out in a small, high-powered rear-wheel drive car in the wet, they'd probably be getting a little bit nervous. But Alex, along with several other dealers, is very, very good to me. So thank you for your continued support there. Now, one thing that's actually very, very pleasing and actually a real surprise is just how nice this car handles. The truth about cars, and doubly so for car reviews, is that whether you think you are or you aren't, you're always comparing one car to another. Because you never get in any car, unless it's your first ever car, without having some sort of preconception as to what everything else is going to feel like. Now, just recently, my brain, boot and hands have been calibrated to an Elise Cup 250. One of the finest handling, best responding cars you will find on Earth. It was basically perfection. This, of course, isn't. However, it's still a lovely steer. Now, as is traditional with this generation of BMW, you have a choice of different driving modes. You've got Eco Pro, Comfort, Sport and Sport Plus. I'm going nowhere near Sport Plus in this weather, because what that does, amongst other things, is slacken off the traction control a little bit. Now, these cars do not have a mechanical limited slip differential. They've got an electronic locking differential, and I've found they never work quite as well, or more importantly, as predictably as the real deal. So, sideways antics is going to be limited to the unintentional in this video. I'm very sorry. If you want to see someone hooning a car around in these kind of conditions, I recommend Sideways Sid. Lovely chap. However, I don't know, this car's not too scary, actually. I mean, I can see how you could get something very, very badly wrong in these conditions. But the controls are all delightful. Now, this wheel, of course, is massive compared to the car that I just came out of, but it's nice enough. There's a few blank buttons on it, which is something that always annoys me a little bit. One thing I do really like, and is something that I find BMW always tend to get right, is how nice and low you sit in the car. For me, the driving position in this car is basically spot on. Now, I know in the 2 Series the seats are angled in a sort of weird way, and I must confess I'm completely used to cars which put your bum or your legs or your arms in a slightly weird position, so I don't tend to notice those things as much as a lot of other people do, but it doesn't seem to be that bad. The 2 Series, if you're not aware, the seats are all kind of kinked in a little bit. It's very, very odd, but anyway, that's how it is. This is fine though. There's a very pleasing sound from the exhaust. It is just doing its thing. We're working our way down the road. It's lovely and pleasant and nice, and it just reminds you that there's something there. For a 135, not an M car, I'd say they've judged the volume just about right. From the outside, these cars sound really, really nice too. Wow. Turning's actually quite sharp and quite quick. I like it. Now, the big difference that I found when BMW moved from the twin turbo to the twin scroll is that they're much keener to be revved out. The twin turbo setup I absolutely adore, and it picks up much, much quicker and gives you a healthier slab of torque low down, but they aren't very keen to rev out. I recently drove the Z4 S-Drive 35IS, which has essentially the same power plant as the old 1M Coupe, and that was a brilliant unit when you're at low to mid revs, but that last 1500 RPM, where a true M motor would come alive, it's just a bit indifferent. But for a regular car, this is absolutely fine. I can actually see quite a bit of the bonnet, even though I've put the seat in its lowest position, and that's very important. A 1 Series has got a good chance of being a first car or a car for young people, and being able to place the car on the road is quite important. It helps keep those insurance premiums down. There you go. And you get people in faux 4x4s hooning down country lanes. I mean, who'd go fast down a road like this? So, everything falls to hand. Now, this being a 1 Series, of course, you'll find that the quality of the materials inside is not the best that it could possibly be. Now, this being a 135i, or the M135i to be correct, this of course is the best of the bottom. So it's the most expensive cheap car that BMW basically do. And it's fine. There's plenty of angles and things in here. All of the switches feel reassuringly solid. The stereo is actually okay, which BMW seem to be very hit and miss their stereos, but it's okay. I'll say no more about it. I'm not here for the stereo, truth be told. Plus, it's full of copyrighted music. The view out is nice. Visibility at the back's good. This has got some tinting on the rear window, but it's still okay for visibility. Not so fond about the unit up here, kind of just sticking out. That's not so great, but it's a very, very pleasant place to be. I remember the first time that I drove a 1 Series, I expected it to be a lot like the Mini. Actually, I found it was much closer to my 3 Series, which I had at the time, than I expected it to be. As hatches go, this is a very grown-up car. It's very, very nice. Now, if you wanted to play hooligan with it, you can do that. But for being a nice, sensible daily driver, with a bit of bite when you need it, this is perfect. And best news of all, they're cheap. This car's got just over 30,000 miles on it. It's currently up for sale at under £20,000. Leggier examples, which are not in as good a condition, are of course available for less money. This one's pretty nice. I think it's very nice to see the manual gearbox spec'd as an option. That's a lot rarer than it should be. And it's nice to drive it because it's just, well, that'll be the front parking sensors. That'll be my unable assistant.
Dying.
He's not dying. He just decided to spend a night sleeping in a Peugeot 106 and then realised what a terrible, terrible idea that was. But
I have some regrets.
yes, he regrets everything. So, anyway, we're not here to talk about my dying friend because he's not got long anyway. I'll put an address where you can send flowers in the description below. The suspension is actually pretty bang on. It's very easy for cars like this to be a little bit too firm. Again, with this not being an M car, it's not what I'm after. But I'm finding it difficult to criticise the car because it offers a hell of a lot for not a lot of money. No, this is a genuine 155 mile an hour car. That's only because at that speed, it will hit the limiter. Now, you can modify these cars. You can get quite a bit of power out of them. You can put different exhausts on them. You can make them sound quite cool. And that's part of the appeal of a hot hatch, isn't it, really? You want to customize it. You want to make it your own. And the 1 Series, because it's probably one of the more common BMWs, has a really good selection of aftermarket parts. And they're not all crazy expensive. There's BMW official M Performance parts. They do uprated brakes, they do different exhausts, they do styling bits, you get some bits of carbon you can put on the car. All that sort of stuff is out there, and that's very important, I think, if you're the sort of person who's going to buy a car like this. Now, the other things that are very important if you're buying a car like this, there's a good chance this is going to be your only car. So practicality is a very, very big concern. Well, you got all the toys and things you want up here. You've got sat nav, I'm pretty sure. Have we got sat nav? Sat nav, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute. Yes, there's sat nav. Sat nav's important because, you know, a few years ago, sat nav was not standard in BMWs, and it's a very expensive option, but now it seems to be standard across most of the range. In the back, there's a decent amount of room. I've put the seat in a fairly comfortable position. I could move forward a little bit if I needed to, but you'd happily get I'd say another 2 adults comfortably in the back. The boot's actually a pretty decent size as well. Now, I know this isn't the prettiest of all cars. In fact, it's perhaps a little on the ugly side. It's not the greatest of shapes, but it is very, very functional, and that's kind of important. Got very, very nice alloys specified on this car. They're 18s, I believe, and they look great. Brakes look nice and sexy. It's a lovely place to be. You've got leather everywhere, which of course I love. Not a fan of Alcantara. You've got this aluminium cube trim. It kind of does what it says in the tin, really. It's a nice, good all-round hatchback. Unfortunately, I've not really been able to tell you as much as I would like about the car's performance because, well, it is damp out there and this car has earned its reputation. Sounds lovely when revved out, really, really nice. And so, I think this is not really the end of the review. This is going to be a to be continued, I'm afraid. Think of this as the extended intro. I'm very sorry if you're not happy with that, but, well, it's not my car to break. So, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up because, you know, give a thumbs up for Alex because he's been a good sport letting me take the car out. And if you could hit the subscribe button if you haven't already, you'll of course be notified when my next video is released, which I'm sure you'll love even more than this one. But for now, thank you all for watching. Bye-bye.